I am Slick Nick, and you are participating in an experiment. I'm going to find out if this video gets demonetized, and if it does, that further backs up this whole concept that I recently learned by watching my favorite, the Joe Rogan Experience. In a recent video, he talked about ESG ratings, as far as how corporations are being judged on how woke they are, which will determine how investors back them up. So when you Google ESG rating, here's what happens. A comprehensive measure of a company's long-term commitment to socially responsive investments in environmental, social, and governance. That's what the ESG is, environmental, social, and governance investment standards. So in theory, based on the Joe Rogan video that I watched, Tesla has a low rating because of things that Elon Musk has said. But meanwhile, if a corporation is very pro Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, etc., those woke types of things, that is going to boost the rating, so it makes them more profitable. So let's keep that in mind. That's the backstory for where I'm coming up with this. So again, I'm not going to, as a YouTuber, I have the ability to turn off monetization. If I think it's going to be too controversial, I can turn that off, because the more times my videos basically get caught not being friendly enough, then that can keep me from making money at all. And that's the whole point of being a YouTuber. Yeah, you get to have fun and do all this stuff, but if you're not making money from it, then what would be the point? Like, the whole thing is, it's a side hustle. We're inspired, we're motivated by making money on the side for making these videos. It's a hobby that pays. You know, I recently thought about starting jiu-jitsu, but then I'm like, well, I would be paying money and spending time, and there's not an obvious way for me to make money off of that. So here we go. What I'm gonna look at is a comment that came up, because I think it is very relevant, and it ultimately inspired me to do this video. I've been wanting to, but then this really kind of got me inspired that much more. So I'm actually going to look at the video here, and you can check this out yourself on Joe Rogan Experience. Just search this: ESGs are the reason for woke corporate interest. You know what? Here's what I think of. And let me be very clear. Obama's first term, he was against gay marriage. It wasn't until the second term that he approved it, and now marriage is legal. And I remember when that happened, seeing an ad for Oreos, Nabisco, and it had a big old Oreo with all the different flavors of the colors of the rainbow. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I know the real reason they're doing that. It's not because they care one way or the other about gay marriage. It's that they know they can sell more product that way. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick and the Black Lives Matter and the kneeling thing. They started having ads promoting that, but it's clearly a double standard, because who's making those shoes? Like, it becomes problematic when you find out how those shoes are made overseas. It's corporations have to appear to be woke so that they can get their stockholders supporting them. But what's funny is the free market's involved here too. So then you have situations like now, and check this out, I read the article yesterday. So Joe Rogan was paid like $50 million recently to start putting all his videos on Spotify first. So this is a deal, because they knew, hey, this is like the #1 YouTuber of 2020, the #1 podcaster of the world, basically. We want some of that. We'll gladly pay him $50 million, because we're gonna make a lot more than that by having him on here. But see, Joe Rogan basically shares the same views as I do, very similar minded. And Bill Maher is another one, but specifically Joe Rogan, he's so independent. And he's able to say, hey, that's messed up, that doesn't make sense, that's illogical. And he'll say it. Well, here's what makes things tricky for Joe Rogan, is because there are people who work for Spotify who are complaining that he's transphobic, that they're perceiving that he's racist, because the moment you speak anything against the concept of Black Lives Matters or LGBTQ, then automatically you're demonized. So it's interesting. So now a minority at Spotify are complaining to their employer, you can't let Joe Rogan say that. Meanwhile, the people in suits and ties are thinking, yeah, but he's our moneymaker. Like, we paid him $50 million because he's gonna make us a lot more than $50 million. So keep in mind, that's the reality of it. I'm a libertarian, and I know that the free market speaks louder than anything. I don't think Spotify can afford to not have Joe Rogan. It's too much of a moneymaker for them. So there's your intro to this. Now I want to go to the comment section and just sort of close this video out by further showing this concept that basically we are muted on what we can say. And actually, I recently saw a Joe Rogan video too where he talked about how because Big Pharma is the biggest sponsor of a lot of shows, especially the news shows. That's why they're always trying to sell you prescription drugs. Well, that's their market. So you can't say things that speak against that. I've ran into this on this channel. If I put Big Pharma in the video title, they'll demonetize it. They don't want us speaking against Big Pharma. They don't want us speaking against COVID as far as wearing masks and all that, because I was one of those people who only wore a mask during COVID if I was forced to. Meanwhile, every day I went to the gym, I'm working out, no one at the gym was wearing a mask either. Here in Tennessee, things were different. And that was more of how people that I know in real life thought about COVID. So with that being said, let's look at a comment that I got that inspired this video. The video I made was called "Do Looks Matter If You're a Guy? Yes, but not in the way you think." Now here was an unrelated comment, but I think it's important. From the letter M, that's the person. They said, quote, "Who else thinks that black pill content is only allowed on YouTube because it encourages men to spend money on big pharma drugs?" So I will say absolutely, I'm one of those people. I can tell you for a fact, because I have been demonetized and censored in ways on YouTube for speaking against big pharma. I've said many times before, no one in my family of 4 is on prescription drugs. If one of my kids got really sick and needed it, that's one thing. But we don't live day to day on prescription drugs. I'm very much against big pharma. It's very obvious to me that hospitals, the medical community, what do they want to do? They want to sell you drugs, or they want you to get a surgery. They don't, and that's why I love being keto, because I'm taking matters into my own hands. And I used to have health problems like eczema, things like that. I don't have them anymore because I learned how to trim the body fat, lower my body fat percentage, and take matters in my own hands. But they don't want to, the medical community doesn't want you to do that. They want you to sell you surgery or drugs. And if they can't, it's not their fault that doctors aren't trained on nutrition. They're not. Like, that's common knowledge to me now. They're not trained on that. They need to sell you surgery or drugs. And if they can't do that, they're not really doing their job, and they're not supporting the business of, this whole medical thing. So closing thought, this whole black pill, red pill thing. So black pill is, you're a victim. You need to buy this product to be saved. Red pill is like, hey, well, what are my other options? So you're not supposed to ask what your other options are. So for me too, and a lot of my videos on this channel are about hair loss. I've always been very red pill about it. It's like, you don't need to buy drugs to save your hair. What you need to do is save your masculinity. If you're really going bald, then you shave it off, because that's what people respect. They respect you taking matters in your own hands. That's masculine. That's decisive. So I've always said, do the drugs work? Maybe they do. Do I care? No. Do I want them? No, absolutely not. So here's some things to think about. And maybe I should leave a comment on my own video when this video gets demonetized, because I don't think YouTube's going to be okay with me speaking against these ratings. They don't want me speaking against big pharma. But maybe if I can title the video in a way that doesn't make it obvious, maybe I can get away with it. But yeah, totally look into that rating thing. The corporations are being judged on how woke they are. And if you don't appear to be woke, then it's going to hurt your business in some ways. But yet still the free market speaks. Still the free market is going to support a product or a company, or they're not. And that's ultimately why this whole thing about Joe Rogan is so interesting. Because he's employed by Spotify. They invested in him. And because some people at his company are saying, we don't like this, what are they going to do? Are they going to bow down to the wokeness? Or are they going to keep making money off of Joe Rogan? Same thing, like recently there was a country music star, I can't think of his name recently, but he said the N-word, and instead of his record company flat out, is his name Morgan Wallen, something like that. Instead of his record company flat out just saying, you're done, they said, well, we're gonna put him in timeout for a while. Well, if they really felt that way, that they were really bothered by what he said, they would cut the contract altogether. But they know that people are still going to listen to his music, even though clearly it was wrong that he said the word. But the record company knows they need to keep making their money. They've already invested in him. So I think that's interesting as a third party to look back and say, okay, well, companies need to be woke and help their score go up. But ultimately, the free market is removed from that. They still support or don't support something accordingly, based on whether they want to. What are your thoughts? And let's see if this gets demonetized. If it does, I'll leave a comment on my own video.